A massive bear unexpectedly materializes behind a fisherman who scrambles to devise a safe way out of the precarious scenario. He makes the terrifying beast chase after him as soon as he decides to go towards the jungle. It's difficult to believe what the bear did next. How such a massive beast could have ambushed him was beyond Timothy's comprehension. He had been caught off guard by the bear's sudden appearance, but there was no time to dwell on it at this time. Timothy needed to focus on finding a way out of this predicament. Raising itself to an even more majestic height on its hind legs, the big bear let out a roar that reverberated throughout the forest. Timothy's hands shook as he grasped his rucksack. It was all he had, and if the bear attacked, it wouldn't be much protection. He swung his bag precisely, trying to give himself enough time to flee, because it was somewhat heavier due to the flask he carried in it. Still, the bear was on the lookout. It had seen him. Therefore, Timothy would only have one chance to get away. Timothy remained the focus of the bear's attention. Even though he had been living in Willowhaven for a long time, he had never previously come this close to a bear. But while Timothy was making plans, the bear likewise appeared to be considering what to do next. It moved its head gently back and forth, never taking its eyes off of you. Timothy's heart was thumping in his ears as he stood still. His lone weapon, the rucksack, he clutched firmly in front of him. The bear suddenly swung at the bag and tore it from Timothy's grasp. His sole line of defense was gone, and his breathing got more irregular as he felt certain the bear would strike immediately. Timothy was unaware, though, that things were going to grow more scarier. Since he could remember, Timothy had gone fishing at Willowhaven Lake. He used to spend weekends here as a youngster with his father, and when he was an adult, he made the decision to relocate closer to the forest and abandon his hectic life in the city in order to spend more time each day surrounded by the untamed beauty. Regardless of the weather, he spent most of his time by the lake from his tiny home on the edge of the forest. Timothy was around the water all the time. Timothy's favorite aspect of Willowhaven was its animals. A variety of wild creatures, including foxes and deer, would walk by his home. Not so long ago, an owl had even moved into a tree outside his living room window. The abundance of fish and frequent sightings of eagles soaring over the snow-capped mountains on the lake's distant shore made him like the lake. However, Timothy was aware that there were wolves and bears hidden deep inside the forest, so he took care to never venture too far. Seeing these creatures up close was nothing new to him, so he was eager to avoid getting in their way. Timothy had woken up to see the woodland floor covered in a fresh layer of white snow. Upon opening his front door to check the depth, he was relieved to see that it barely reached his toes, allowing him to continue to the lake. He dressed warmly, knowing that it would be chilly, and only intended to spend an hour or two outside before going back to his cabin to warm up. In order to stay warm, he packed up all of his fishing supplies and made sure to include a flask of hot coffee. He then made his way to the lake, wishing that it wouldn't be frozen over entirely. Fortunately for Timothy, certain areas of the lake had not frozen over. He thus found a site, assembled all of his fishing equipment, and made himself a cup of coffee. 2 hours had gone by before he realized it. He was getting a little bit cold now, but it was so easy to lose track of time out here. I think it would be better if he packed everything and went home. He could feel someone behind him as he packed the rest of his belongings into his backpack. Timothy turned slowly, and a massive brown bear appeared a few steps away from him. Startled, Timothy let go of his backpack. How could he have missed something so massive approaching from behind? Panic struck very swiftly. There was no way he could try to slip away from the bear, knowing that it had spotted him. Since Timothy rarely fished on this side of the lake, he had most likely trespassed into the bear's domain. He started cursing himself now for not paying more attention to his surroundings. He was having problems. The bear raised itself to its hind legs and let forth a roar that appeared to hush the woodland, alerting others. Timothy would have been astonished by the bear's enormous height if he hadn't been so afraid, but now he was shaking. The bear was not amused to find himself in its domain, and was likely to take whatever necessary action to protect its area. Timothy felt that he was a sitting duck, waiting for the bear to strike if he stayed in his current location. The only way he was going to get away unscathed was to create a distraction and escape. He stooped to get his backpack slowly, keeping his eyes fixed on the bear the entire while. He intended to get away from the bear while it was distracted by what had hit it and tossed the sack at it. Before Timothy could execute his plan, however, the bear tore the bag out of his hands with its enormous paws and swiped at it. Time was not on his side. He had to move quickly. In his desperation, he glanced around and noticed a rock just behind him. With haste, he knelt, picked up the rock, and pointed it in the bear's direction. Timothy started to run as soon as the rock caught the bear's front leg. But the distraction provided by the rock was insufficient, and the bear soon followed Timothy after realizing he was running. With no clear idea of where he was heading, Timothy was suddenly racing through the woodland. All he needed was somewhere to hide, and quickly. Though every part of him was shaking, he could hear the bear plodding after him and willed his legs to keep moving. He came to a clearing in the trees, but before he could choose which direction to go, something smacked him in the back, causing him to lose consciousness and fall to the ground. Timothy knew the bear had knocked him down based on the growls and puffing noises emanating from beneath his feet. He didn't think he was harmed, except then the fact that being winded pained his chest. Why hadn't the bear utilized its claws? And why wasn't it seizing the chance to strike now that it was on the ground? Timothy was at a loss for what to do. Should he turn over to investigate what was going on or stay still and hope the bear grew bored? Knowing the bear was behind him and that he was unable to see what was occurring made him uneasy. Timothy ventured to turn over very slowly. He was shocked to see that the terrifying beast was moving away from him. As he relaxed up, Timothy became aware of the sharp ache shooting through his chest. The bear stopped and started to scratch at the ground just where the woods met the clearing. Though he was afraid of upsetting the bear once more if he moved too quickly, Timothy's curiosity was beginning to rise. The bear appeared to be digging ferociously and around something. Raising his head, he approached the bear cautiously in order to ascertain what was going on. The bear met his gaze once again as he got closer. Timothy noticed the bear's face had altered this time. The expression had changed from one of fear and anger to one of desperation and grief. Now that the bear had been circling about a massive hole in the earth, Timothy could see it. It was evident why the bear was feeling depressed as he looked over the side of the pit. 2 cub bears were at the bottom of the hole. While the other was resting on its side, the first was moving around and wailing. Timothy understood that one of the cubs must have hurt itself in the fall when he discovered metal spikes along the bottom of the hole. He felt very sorry for the bear. He had never experienced hunting in Willow Haven to the extent that it was today. Having come across several traps in the last few months, he couldn't bear the idea that someone was trying to murder the forest's defenseless creatures for pleasure. With the intention of sparing some of the animals, he had taken to demolishing any traps he came across. If only he could make it back to his cabin, he would have everything he needed to help save the cubs and attempt to heal the injured one. But he did not want the mother bear to believe that he was making another escape. In an attempt to show the mother bear that he was concerned, he bent down near the edge of the hole. Timothy moved out of the clearing and promised to return. He soon realized the bear couldn't comprehend him, but now it seemed as though she trusted him and didn't try to chase after him. After scrambling as quickly as he could to his cabin, he grabbed some rope, blankets, and basic medical supplies before making a break for the pit. The mother bear was still present, as it turned out. Thankfully, it wasn't as difficult as Timothy had thought to remove the cubs from the pit. The trap was a little shallower than others he'd seen, but the cubs were often docile. Although it was difficult to get the cubs up and Timothy was tired from the struggle, at least they were free of the trap. One of the cubs was unharmed, as was to be expected, but the other appeared to have snagged its rear leg on one of the spikes. The tiny cub was moving very little, while the mother bear was licking its wound feverishly. With caution, Timothy picked up the cub onto a blanket so as not to become involved too deeply. Keeping the poor animal warm and comfortable was imperative, since it was probably in shock. The mother bear moved aside, seemingly allowing Timothy to continue. He glanced at the wound, and a wave of comfort washed over him. Not that it seemed very profound. He started trying to tidy things up as best he could. The bear would have a higher chance of surviving if he could clean it, since the wound wouldn't become infected. Once he was done, he removed the cub's blanket. It appeared to have recovered some vigor, and it stumbled to its feet after receiving a little prod from its mother. Now, As they went slowly away, both cubs nuzzled close to their mother. The wounded cub limped a little, but Timothy realized it was lucky to have only that. Timothy was packing up his medical gear and the rope as it was becoming dark outside. Though he knew his work here was far from over, he still had to return home. He was going to check the pit the next day to make sure no animals had fallen in. Timothy discovered the clearing the following day. With a shovel in hand, he planned to fill in the pit. But first, he had to take off the spikes to make sure no one else was hurt. He ripped the metal spikes up from the earth one by one, growing more and more enraged as he did so. He would bring them home and throw them out. He started filling in the hole after removing every spike from the ground. He was aware that there would be more traps in the forest, but he would continue to demolish any that he came across. It was laborious. The ground was very cold, and he quickly started perspiring. He was wiping perspiration from his brow while leaning on his shovel when he heard a low rumbling. A massive bear was observing Timothy from just outside the woods. Beside it were a couple of little bear cubs. The bear stayed there until he had filled the hole all the way. Timothy smiled as he saw that one of the cubs was limping a little as they left. The bears had come back to see him lending them a hand once more. He would never forget that particular moment. It's up to you now. How did you feel about this narrative? How would you have responded if you were Timothy? Please feel free to comment below with your comments. We'd love to hear them. We appreciate your time and we'll see you in the upcoming video.